Hey, welcome back to Slow Bells. Today we're in Ilion, New York, whose apparent claim to fame is it is the home of the Remington Gun Factory, the oldest factory for making guns in the U.S., or so I am told. We are making our way up the Erie Canal, but today I want to tell you about our trip up the Hudson River from New York City to Waterford. I'm also going to throw in a blurb about how boaters go about maneuvering their boats when they're moving real slow in and out of a marina. There's a couple different ways to do it, so I'll tell you what little I know about the topic. Check it out.
The day after Lynn and I arrived at Half Moon Bay Marina in a town called Croton-on-Hudson, we boarded a commuter train and headed off for a day of serious sightseeing in New York City. We expected the train into town to be packed to the gills, but it was uncrowded and a pleasant commute into New York City.
This is the train
We got off the train in Grand Central Terminal in downtown New York City. A nice lady at the ticket booth took pity on Lynn and I, since neither of us had the slightest idea what we were doing, and she showed us how to use the subway system to get where we needed to go that day. The train we used to get into New York City may not have been packed to the gills, but the subway we used inside New York City was most definitely packed to the gills. I guess it's all part of the adventure. Our first stop was the 9/11 Memorial. There are two of these deep waterfall holes, one beneath where each of the two twin towers once stood. We also took a guided tour of the 9/11 Memorial building, which was excellent. Another crazy subway ride got us within striking distance of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. We had lunch inside and viewed displays for everything from Native American Indian art to rock and roll guitars. We next spent a little time wandering around New York's Central Park. I saw a lot of dinghies, but not a single trawler. Our next stop was called Top of the Rock. It was a viewing platform near the top floor of the Rockefeller Center. We next walked over to the Empire State Building, but it was $75 for a ride to the viewing platform on top of that building. So we decided to just take a picture of a model of the building that they had down in the lobby. On our way back to Grand Central Terminal, we stopped in a pizza joint for dinner, then caught a train back to the marina. We eventually resumed our trip up the Hudson River. The flat lands of the Chesapeake and Delaware Bays were behind us now as small rolling mountains started to dominate the landscape. Over the course of the day, we passed by the home of President Roosevelt, which was hard to see, and we passed the military academy at West Point, which was hard to miss. Lynn said the water near West Point was around 180 feet deep. Yeah, I think there's We anchored that afternoon behind Esopus Island in 30 feet of water. It was one of the deepest anchorages I have ever anchored in. It worked out fine for us that night because the winds were pretty light, but I would not recommend this anchorage on a stormy night unless you have a lot of anchor line. The next morning, after Lynn had retrieved 200 feet of anchor line, we resumed our trip up the Hudson, which was slowly starting to shrink in width. Our last anchorage on the Hudson River was at the south end of Hugh Island, just a little bit south of the city of Albany. Since my mast would not fit under some of the bridges that were in our future, Lynn and I lowered the mast to make the boat canal ready. Our anchorage turned out to be a good viewing spot for passing Amtrak trains. Our final day on the Hudson River took us past the city of Albany, New York. Just north of Albany, we encountered our first lock. We finished up the day by pulling into Waterford, New York. Waterford is a significant crossroads on the Great Loop. It is here that the Hudson River and the Champlain Canal continue north toward Lake Champlain, and the Erie Canal and the Mohawk River head west towards Buffalo, New York. Speaking of the Erie Canal, I plan to only do roughly half of the Erie Canal, then hang a right turn on the Oswego Canal and head north up to Lake Ontario. Let's talk a minute about how to maneuver your boat in either a slow speed or at no speed at all. To start off this discussion, imagine you are sitting in a parked car inside a garage. Now, what happens to the direction the car is pointed when you turn the steering wheel to the right? Well, nothing happens, right? If the tires are not moving over the cement, your steering wheel has no effect. A similar situation would be a boat sitting still in the water. If you turn the boat's steering wheel, nothing happens. If water is not moving past the boat's rudders, your steering wheel has no effect. Now, let's look at a situation every boater has to deal with. Leaving a crowded marina. You move your boat forward out of your slip, then stop before you clobber the boat in front of you. You would now like to turn left to leave the marina, but your steering wheel has no effect because water is not flowing past your rudder because you're not moving. How the heck do you make that left-hand turn? When I had my sailboat, I would do the sailboat shuffle. I would alternate between going forward just a little and then backing up just a little. Each time I threw my engine into forward gear, the propeller would send a blast of moving water past my rudder so I could briefly turn the boat just a little bit more. After doing this dance long enough, I would eventually get the boat out of the marina. It was similar to turning your car around on a narrow road. These days, many boats get around this problem with something called a bow thruster. It's basically a small propeller driven by an electric motor near the bow of your boat. The bow thruster's job is to push the bow a left or right when you're trying to get out of that marina. My friends Daryl and Debbie recently bought a trawler with both a bow thruster and a stern thruster. This gives you even more control, especially when backing into a slip. With this arrangement, they could even move the boat sideways if they wanted to. Hey Daryl, you could be the first boat to do the entire Great Loop sideways. My trawler does not have a bow thruster, but it does have two engines. To understand how to maneuver a twin screw boat, it is helpful to think about how to maneuver a wheelchair. To turn a wheelchair to the right without moving forward or backwards, you would push the left wheel forward and pull the right wheel backwards. The wheelchair would then rotate clockwise towards the right. You take exactly the same approach when maneuvering a twin-screw boat. The port side engine is put in forward gear, which tries to pull the left side of the boat forward. The starboard engine is put into reverse gear, which tries to drag the right side of the boat backwards. These two forces acting together will rotate the boat clockwise to the right, just like the wheelchair. Typically, I leave my rudders in the straight ahead position when I'm maneuvering in or out of a slip with my two engines. But something I have learned is that if I'm trying to rotate the boat clockwise to the right with my engines, I can increase my rate of turn by turning the steering wheel to the right. You can also increase your rate of turn by increasing the RPMs of both engines. Sometimes this is helpful if the wind is hampering your ability to maneuver your boat. By the way, you can also use a rope to help you turn your boat in tight quarters. One end of the rope is attached to your boat, and one end is attached to a dock or piling. This is often referred to as warping your boat, but you don't want to try this at warp speed. Slower is better when maneuvering in and out of a marina.
Well, you now know everything that I know about maneuvering a trawler, which is not saying much. And by the way, even if you pull into a slip and completely screw up, it has the benefit of providing the rest of the marina with entertainment for the day. Tune in next time and we'll head up the Erie Canal together. Later.